I've been watching, it's been an interesting conversation. Let's talk about currency itself. That seems to be the most important part of the discussion. Do you think anything with the volatility that crypto has shown can ever become a medium of exchange in the sense that fiat and sovereign currencies have become? And you look at that analog, you don't have near as many exchanges. I just looked to see how many exchanges are out there. I mean, it's a couple pages full. Do you think in the long run we'll get through with this interesting technology that has so much to offer, not only on the provenance of stuff, but to be kind of that foundation for currencies? Will volatility, the way we've seen it, do you think that is just the early stages of it, or do you think it'll be inherent to cryptocurrency going forward?
Senator, I think, one, you can never predict what's going to happen, but I would say if we look in the past, say, 12 months, from the beginning of 2022 to where we are right now, and especially focusing on the events in the crypto digital asset space in April and May when Terra Luna and some of these bankruptcies at these large lenders and hedge funds occurred, the price movement of, and I'm going to use Bitcoin as the most prominent example, moved significantly downward from a much more elevated price. And then the spread or the volatility has really narrowed, more so than it ever has historically. We've largely been in a $5,000, which is a huge move, right, relative to what you're saying, but relative to the history of the Bitcoin volatility, in the past 6 months, it's been very narrow relative to its past. So is that a sign of things to come? Possibly. And could we end up in a situation where Bitcoin or other digital currencies really start to narrow and you have that pressure from bidders and buyers and sellers where that range is much more narrow? It's possible. I would say also quickly, the technology under the undergird of the foundation of the technology is really an issue. The cost from a payments perspective, which I'm sure you've read about, those are issues that I think have to be figured out in order for the application of these tools in traditional finance and payment systems to be applied.
And the other thing we can kind of turn the page back to, the dot-com explosion had a lot of these characteristics. Many of those stocks went up 10 times on public issue, ended up maybe either being of no value or selling way under, and kind of the same dynamic there. We'll see over time. Security or commodity. Wouldn't you think the entities within, the exchanges, maybe ought to be regulated by the SEC, and whatever we end up with that has more characteristics of a commodity, the currencies, end up being regulated by your agency? Is there any need that it would have to be regulated all by one or the other?
I made this comment before, Senator, and I appreciate the question that, under existing authority for the SEC, they cannot oversee a commodity, right? Any commodity class, whether it's...
But we're still trying to define what they are,
right,
and what all the elements are within it.
We are. I think many of the characteristics should really be driven by historical precedent about what a commodity is and what a security is. I said this before. If we look at the Howey test from 1946, right? It's an investment money in a common enterprise with the expectation of profit from the work of others, right? Those are the core characteristics of a security, and those same fundamental characteristics should be applied to a digital commodity. There probably will likely be different things that we have to add and think about, but fundamentally that's what we're thinking about, because the SEC was created to bridge information gaps between issuers and investors. The CFTC was created to create a market-based structure so that commodities can be traded in a transparent, fair, and resilient way.
That's probably a pretty good paradigm, at least now. A lot of it is structured simply because those are the existing guidelines as well. Here, I think, is the biggest issue. This is a fledgling concept. It's arcane to many, but it also looks like it's got huge potential, because when you look at sovereign currencies, those haven't, in terms of a medium of exchange, it's a hostage to whatever your fiscal policies and your central banking policies are as well. I think we need to really err on the side of making sure that we don't smother it, over-regulate it. It definitely needs some regulation so that we don't take what might be the salvation for many places that don't even have a country that performs in a sovereign way, let alone a currency. So how aware are you of the fact that I look at Bernie Madoff, he was a guy that was a crook involved in retirement. And we're going to have some of that here now, and we might be looking at that being litigated as well. But you still don't want to take the exception, the outliers, and take something this new, this unknown, and put a wet blanket on it for all the future potential it has. Just give me your general thoughts on that.
Senator, I'm going to focus on my responsibility as a market regulator and coming to you and telling you what I'm seeing in markets and the risk to customers and where the regulatory.
Do you want to make an opinion on that outside of your bailiwick?
Maybe in the hallway, but probably not right now.
Fair enough. Good conversation.
Thank you, Senator.